There's a war you can't see on TV, more lethal than tanks and treaties, more viral than any headline feed. It's not World War I, it's not World War II, it's World War III. A clash for the mind, a scramble for the soul, a battle of meaning where truth pays the toll. They fight with definitions, shoot with opinions, and drop bombs of deception in every conversation. But here we decode, here we rebuild. Talk with Josie stands on a hill where kingdom meets culture, theology meets reality, and wisdom meets vulnerability. We talk deep, but we live loud. We think kingdom, but we act now. We bring light where confusion hides and drop truth bombs that awaken minds. This is not just talk, it's transformation in motion. Faith with fire, thought with devotion. So tune your spirit, open your heart, because where others grow, we soar. This is Talk with Josie.
Hello, beautiful people. It's a pleasure once again to, introduce to some, of course, if you are new here, and also present to others. For those of us that are family and have been here since the very beginning, the Talk with Josie podcast, of course, with me, Josie. Let's get right to today's business. I want to open up today's episode with a statement I believe would shake you into awareness. I want to start today's conversation with a quote I believe would awaken something within you, would awaken you onto urgency, would awaken you onto action, and would inspire you to move forward from where you are to where you ought to be. And the statement is, there are certain prayers you've been praying that you are the answer to. There are certain prayers you've been praying. Yes, I believe you've all been praying. There are things that we are waiting on God to do for us. There are things that we are trusting God to do for us. There are things we are hoping and have faith that God will do. And that's true, God will do it. But then there are certain prayers that we have been praying that we are the answer to. And before we delve into this particular statement and then go into it deeper, I want us to quickly learn certain things and then we get back there. It's going to help us make the point. What I want us to learn briefly before we delve into the statement is the 3 ways that God answers our prayers. The 3 channels that God uses to intervene in the affairs of men. So whenever we pray, whenever we ask God to intervene in our affairs, whenever we are expecting answers from God, there are 3 major channels that he uses to intervene or answer us when we pray. The first one is divine intervention. Divine intervention. That is when God himself decides to come into a matter. That is when God himself decides to intervene. That is when God decides that he himself is going to be the solution to a problem. Yes, I feel strongly within my spirit that for some of you, God is going to come to town for your cause. There are certain things that you've been praying about. There are certain things that you've been trying to solve. There are certain things that you've involved human effort and all seem to come to no avail. But this particular season of your life, God is going to divinely intervene. Divine intervention, certain things that only God can do. There are certain things that only God can change. There are certain situations that only God can turn around. And in such cases, God answers us through divine intervention, through heavenly intervention, where he himself supernaturally steps into a matter and turn it upside down and turn it around. The second way that God intervenes and answers us is through human intervention. So in the book of Acts chapter 10, there was this particular man called Cornelius that was praying. And in order for God to answer his prayer, God had to send Peter as the solution to the problem that Cornelius was seeking God for. That is why it's very important how we treat people, because we can't decide who God uses to intervene in our situation. And Cornelius and Peter were from 2 different worlds. Cornelius was a Gentile, Peter was a Jew. So their ideologies were different. Their perception and perspective about life were different. They were coming from two very different places. Yet, when God wanted to answer Cornelius' prayer, God chose to use somebody that was totally different from Cornelius to be the answer to Cornelius' problem. And I believe that some of us, the reason why we are not receiving the answers that God is bringing our way, especially through human form, is because the people that God is presenting to us are very different from us. There are some people that God is going to use to bless you that are not anything like you, that do not think like you, that do not agree on issues with you, that see the world totally from the view that you see it. And yes, like Cornelius' case, God might choose to use such people in your life and you don't decide. So that is why you have to be very flexible and you have to be careful how you treat people, because sometimes God answers our prayers through human intervention. And guess what? Sometimes the humans that God uses are not anything like what we expect. They will not come in the form that you expect. They will not come the way that you want. They would come the way that God chooses to present them. So you have to be flexible, you have to be humble, you have to be accommodating to receive the human intervention that God wants to bring your way. And the third way God chooses to intervene in our affairs when we call on him is through personal intervention. Personal intervention. That is when God uses you as the answer to your prayer. There was this man who had been at the pool of Bethesda for 38 good years of his life. 38 good years of his life. And for some of us, it might not be 38 years, but then there's been issues that we've been dealing with for long, cycles, issues. It keeps on coming. Toxic relationship from one to the other. There's this particular issue that you've been battling for long. It might not be 38 years, but it's been some time. From this to that, and it's the same issue. It looks like just when you think that you've handled it, it keeps on popping up again. And sometimes in order for God to intervene in that particular issue that has been repeating and has been happening in circles, what God uses to intervene is ourselves. So Jesus has a conversation with the man, and the man tells Jesus that I've been here for long because I don't have any man. And look at what Jesus told him: rise up and walk. Jesus did not ask the man to go get his friends to come and help him to get up. No, he told the man that, hey, you are the answer to your problem, so get up and walk. And I believe that for some of us, God is telling us in this season to get up and walk. God is telling us to get up and take the action. Maybe you are listening to this and there's been this break in relationship between you. I feel this strongly, that you are listening to this and you have a very rough relationship with your mom, and it's been like that for the past 3 years. And you feel like you are in the right and your mom is in the wrong, and it has created this tension in your family. And God, like Jesus spoke to the man at the pool of Bethesda to rise up and walk, the Spirit of God has been whispering in your spirit, rise up and start the reconciliation process. Rise up and initiate the apology. I know that you might have been on the offended end. You might have received the offense, but the Lord wants to mend that broken relationship, and He's going to use you, the apology that you initiate, the reconciliation that you initiate, to change the situation. But because of your ego, because of whatever it is, because of the pain and the bitterness, I really understand where you are. I empathize with you. But in order for the situation to change, this time around, God is saying that I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you. And if He's going to use you, you must get up and do what you are supposed to do. Personal intervention. That is when God uses us to turn things around. God uses us to turn things around. Yeah, so that was just by the way. That was just by the way to really buttress the point I'm trying to make with today's conversation. Well, the reason why I came up with this quote was because the past 2-3 days, I was listening to an interview between Bishop T.D. Jakes and Steve Fettig. You know, if Bishop T.D. Jakes is talking, what you do is listen. And beyond listening, what you do is take notes. So I decided to listen. And they were talking about his book, So. He wrote that book about 8 years ago. And then they decided to have an interview to, shed more light on the book. And I would recommend the book for you. If you are in leadership, if you are a visionary, if you believe God is calling you to build something beyond you, if you believe God has called you to champion a cause, I would really recommend that book to you. I decided to go back and read that book, even though I had read it about 8 years ago, and I had listened to that interview 8 years ago, because I felt like in this season of my life, I had to go back and listen to it again, because I'm doing something that would require that level of knowledge and information and expertise. Yes, so I went back to listen to that. And in the course of the conversation, Bishop made a statement, and he said, God don't make no trees. God don't make no chairs. God don't make no tables. God don't make no chairs. God don't make no tables. And then he said that to say that there are things that God does in order for us to advance the vision that he has given us. But there are things that we have to do. There are responsibilities that we have to take. There are actions that we have to take. There are moves we have to make. There are decisions we have to make. There is work we ought to do to ensure that that which God has entrusted us to do becomes reality. That which God has become committed to us becomes a manifestation. That which we are praying to God for, which he has made us the answer to, becomes a manifestation. God don't make no furnitures. God don't make no chairs. God don't make no sofas. Yes, even as we are listening to this conversation, right? We are almost ending the year. We are in the last month. I believe this is the month of October. We are left with just a month for us to conclude on this particular year, 2025. And I believe that for most of us that are listening to this conversation right now, at the start of the year, we had personal resolutions, we had visions, we had goals, we had plans, we received prophetic words. There are things that we aspired and sought to do. There are things that God told us would happen. But if we are being honest, if you sit down and you look on your vision board and you try to juxtapose it to the reality of your life, and you are being sincere, you realize that for some of us, maybe some of the things that we said to do, some of the things that God told us would happen has happened. But for some of us that would also want to be very sincere, would also realize that the reality is far from the promise. The reality is far from the resolution. The reality is far from the vision. And the question is why? Why is it that I told myself that I'm going to go on a weight loss journey, and then not only did I maintain my weight, but I ended up gaining 10 more pounds to the weight I told myself I was going to lose? Why? Why is it that I told myself I was going to save at least 1,000 cedis or 500 cedis every month, and at the end of the 11th month, I find myself not only having not saved, but I'm also in debt? Why? Why did I tell myself that this particular year I'm going to have a very strong, intimate relationship with my wife, with my husband? We are going to deepen our relationship, our connection. We are going to deepen our bond and grow in our relationship, but we find ourselves drifting apart and not liking each other. Why? Why is it that I had a whole business plan? I typed it, I wrote it out, I wrote the steps, I wrote my business plan, but at the end of the year, I find myself not having started anything, and I'm even confused as to where the direction of my life is going. Why? Why is it that I promised myself as a student that I'm going to get my life together, I'm going to take my academics seriously, I'm going to study hard, I'm going to hit the A's, but at the end of the semester, I find myself afraid to go and check my resource portal? Why? And the answer is the statement that Bishop made, which is that God don't make no trees. He don't make no surface. Yes, God might provide the raw materials, that is the trees, but he doesn't make no furnitures. He don't make no furnitures. And today's conversation is going to be very diagnostic and also prescriptive. Diagnostic in the sense that it's going to help you get to the bottom of why your life is where it is today. And then prescriptive in the sense that it's not just going to leave you in a state of awareness and recognition, but it's also going to prescribe solutions, give solutions and strategies and answers to transform your life. So this is not the conversation that you listen to casually. This is not the conversation that you put on your earpiece on your way to work and listen to. That's fine if you are doing that. This is not the conversation that you put in your AirPods and tap into maybe on your way to work out. No, as fine as this is that conversation where you take time to sit down, take your notes and carefully listen and allow yourself to cooperate with the Holy Spirit to enter into the core of your life, the debris of your life, to diagnose why things are happening the way they are happening and the measures that you need to make to turn things around. So God don't make no furnitures. God don't build no great marriages. Don't get me wrong, God, through the principles of the scriptures, might give the keys to how you can build a glorious marriage, but God doesn't build any glorious marriage. God doesn't raise godly kids. He might tell you how to do it, but he doesn't do that. God doesn't build great businesses. He might give you the keys, maybe the ideas, maybe the relationships, maybe the opportunities, but he doesn't build great businesses. God doesn't make grade A's. No, he doesn't. He has never been a student. He will never be a student, and he doesn't make grade A's. He might give you the sound mind to learn. He might, whatever he has to do, but that is your responsibility. That is your responsibility. So you might be asking yourself, so Josie, yes, it's fine. I have accepted that there are things I had to do this year to ensuring that which God told me became manifest, but I didn't do it. I am taking responsibility for the fact that my 2025 is looking like my 2024 and 2023 and 2022, in the sense that the same pattern is happening. I begin the year with resolutions. I begin the year with promises. I begin the year with assurances that things are going to change. I begin the year with plans. But from the middle of the year to the end of the year, I realize that the year doesn't really change. And I'm accepting the fact that it's because I didn't do what I'm supposed to do. It was because I was waiting on God to take the actions that I was supposed to take to change my life, to change the circumstances of my life. So the question is that, Josie, okay, what do I do? What am I supposed to do to turn my trees into furniture? What am I supposed to do to turn my promises into manifestation? What am I supposed to do to turn my resolutions into visible, tangible outcomes? Yes, if you are asking yourself that question, I have 5 keys for you. 5 keys. 5 keys. As I said earlier, this is not going to just be a diagnostic session. It's also going to be a prescriptive session. I'm giving you 5 prescriptions to turn your trees into furniture, to turn your trees into chairs, to turn your vision into manifestation. And the first key is number 1, identify what you have. Identify what you have. There is this account in the scriptures of a widow whose husband was a prophet, and eventually the prophet died and left the woman and their kids in debt. And this woman decided to go to the prophet Elisha for help. I believe that this woman wanted his situation turned around. This woman was very desperate. And maybe you are listening to this, and as the woman was desperate, you are equally desperate. You want your life to turn around. You want your life to change. You're asking yourself, how does this situation change? How does this financial situation change? How does this marital issue change? How do my life change? The first question that the prophet asked the woman was, what do you have? You see, the woman was going to ask for help, but the prophet asked the woman what she had, indicating that what we need for our situation to turn around most of the times lies within us. What you need for your situation to turn around most of the time is not external. Most often times it's already with you. It's already within you. Already God has provided them for you. What do you have? The question of identification. What do you have? What are the ideas you have? For some of you, what you need for your marriage to turn around is the time you have that you are not investing into the marriage. The mouth you have that you are not using to communicate your feelings. What do you have? It's the books you have that you are not reading. It's the relationships that you have that you are not using. What do you have? So the first question is, how do I turn my trees into sofas? What trees do you have? What is your raw material? I want you to sit down and ask yourself, for whatever area that you want to experience transformation in, whether it's your business, your finances, your students, your academic life, whatever, your spiritual life, what do you have? You are listening to this and your spiritual life is as dried fish. And you want to experience rejuvenation, and you are asking, how do I go from this place of spiritual dryness to spiritual revival, personal revival? The question is, what do you have? Your time, what do you do with your phone? What do you do with your internet? What do you have? Your time, what do you use it for? Just surfing the net, so what do you have? Now that's the question. After you've answered the question, what I have, in order to do this, I want you to take some time, quietly sit down and number one, identify the area that you want to experience the change, and number two, list the items that you need for that change to happen. Okay, list the item that you need for that change to happen. Then let's get to the second step. Number two, seek counsel and apply it. Seek counsel. So after the prophet had told the woman, he had asked the woman what he had, and the woman told the prophet that he had just a little oil. The next thing that followed was counsel. The prophet gave the woman counsel and direction as to how to use the little oil that she had. She told her to go borrow vessels and then pour the oil. Go borrow vessels and pour the oil. It's not enough to know what you have. Now, the next step is to seek counsel, seek advice. You don't have to do life alone. There are two levels of counsel you need to navigate life and do it properly. Number one, you need God's counsel. That is God's instructions, God's principles, the word of God, the things that God tells you, either through the scriptures or through your personal relationship with Him. God's counsel, the things God tells you, the things God reveals to you, the things that comes to you personally, the things that God whispers within your heart, whether through His voice or through His word. You need God's counsel to navigate life. Number two, you need godly counsel. Godly counsel. Advice from people that have done life, that have the wisdom, that have the insight that you need to navigate the life that you are navigating. Samuel received a calling from God, but he couldn't interpret it. It took Eli to interpret what Samuel heard. So some of us, the bridge between where we are right now and where we ought to be next is the godly counsel from the godly men that have gone ahead from us, the wise men that have done the life that we are seeking to do. It is unwise to tread a place blind, leave somebody had already gone ahead of you. This is the time to intentionally seek advice. If it is business, there are business people you can ask questions. There are books you can read. There is the advantage of information in our dispensation right now. You can't afford to make blind and stupid moves. No, you can't afford to make that mistake. So seek counsel. Number three, the third step is to take action. Yes, to take action. John chapter 2, verse 5. Mary told the servants, whatever He tells you to do, do it. This is actually one of my favorite scriptures. Whatever He tells you to do, do it. And that goes for us. Whatever thing that you've been advised on, whatever ideas that you have, whatever strategies that you've gotten, the next step to translate your vision into manifestation is to take action. There is no other way around it. Make the move, take action, apologize, start the business, start saving, start going to the gym. Enough of the ideas, enough of the promises. This is the time to take action. If your spiritual life is dry, this is the time to start praying. Get yourself a prayer time. You start praying, you stick to it. Whether you feel like it or you don't feel like it, you stick to it. You become disciplined, consistent. You take action. And this is just by the way. There can never be a perfect circumstance for action to be taken. There can never be perfect condition for action to be taken. You will not always have the variables right. You will not always have the circumstances right. You have to do what you have to do anyway. You have to take action anyway. You have to make up your mind to do it and do it anyway. You have to study anyway. So take action. The reason why the woman eventually saw the miracle that she asked for was because after the prophet had asked her for what she had and she had said it, and after the prophet had given her the instruction, she actually went and did what she was told to do. That is some of our problem. We don't have any problem asking for advice. We don't have any problem making an inventory of our life. Our issue lies with taking action, setting the boundary, exiting that toxic relationship, deciding to eat right. Why do you want to eat at 10 p.m. in the evening? Why? And still complain. Why are you going to drink soda? Why are you taking carbonated drinks? Why are you going to eat that ice cream? Why? You said you were going to hit the gym in February. We are in the month of November. You've not been to the gym. This is the time to actually get up and go to the gym and get your health together. Take action. You've been contemplating and dreaming and seeking advice concerning this girl you want to marry. This is the time to propose. Like, there is no other way around it. There is no way around it. Take action. Okay? Yes. The fourth step is receive feedback. Receive feedback. This is the point where you collect information on what happened after the action. What happened after the action. The information you collect after what happened after the action. Every action has a reaction. Every action has feedback. And one of your advantages as a person, in order to, when you are in the process of executing your vision or executing your plans, is the skill of taking feedback honestly and sincerely. There is a quote that says that failure is feedback and the wise uses it to their advantage. Failure is feedback and the wise uses it to their advantage. You are not always going to get it right on the first try. Even Jesus himself, there was a point in time in his healing ministry that he touched a blind man, and at the first touch, the man saw human beings as trees. But guess what? Jesus took the feedback. So you made the business move, you take feedback. You went to the gym, you take feedback. You wrote your exams, you take feedback. This is a very crucial step. You take feedback. The action, the moves that you have been making. You go back, you sit down, and then you evaluate, you reflect on what is going on, and you begin to write down what you did right, what you didn't do right, and all of that. I want to share a personal story. I think our last production, the items that we needed for the production came a bit late. So I didn't even know how to... I'm not very technically inclined, okay? So I couldn't charge the staff. I didn't do anything. And when we were doing the last production, things became difficult because the batteries were low, the cameras were going on and off during the course of the production. It was a very stressful production to do, right? But this particular production, the story was not the last story was not the case, because I took feedback, and this time around, I made sure that I contacted who I have to contact to teach me how to charge the batteries and do the necessary. So we took feedback from the last time's production, the lapses that went wrong, and then we applied it in this particular production, and then we got the right results, right? So feedback. And the fifth and the last step is to reinvent and rebuild. Reinvent and rebuild. This is the step where we use feedback to iterate. Reinventing means changing shape without abandoning the purpose. Rebuilding is applying what worked with improvement. Applying what worked with improvement. So this particular stage, you are either reinventing or you are rebuilding. So reinventing is changing shape without abandoning the purpose. The strategy, the purpose might be the same, but maybe you would have to change the strategy. Maybe what the route that you chose to get to the means that you wanted to get to didn't work, but your goals must still be the same. Reinventing means that you are going to change the shape or the strategy that you were using. Maybe the study method didn't help. The goal is still to become an A student, but the strategy that you used didn't help. That is where reinvention comes in. What other strategy am I going to use to become a better student, to get my exams right? Okay, the goal was to have like a strong relationship with my spouse. This particular strategy that I took didn't help. How do I reinvent myself? What other ways of communication am I supposed to employ? I was a bit too blunt, too sharp, too impatient in my communication. Reinvention means I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to listen more than I talk. I'm going to hear them to understand instead of hearing them to respond. I hope you are getting it. So reinvention. And then rebuilding is reapplying what's worked with improvement. The strategy that you used, the ones that work for you, you reapply them, and then this time with improvement. So whatever worked, you keep on doing it, but this time it's much more improvement. Much more improvement. And I believe that when we use these keys, which is identifying what you have, counseling, seeking counseling, and then taking action, receiving feedback, and reinventing and rebuilding. I believe so strongly that we are going to get to the place where our visions will become manifestations, our strategies will become actual outcomes, and we are going to see our goals in action. The things that we resorted to do would come to pass. And don't feel bad because we are in the 11th month of the year. Maybe you are listening to this and you are thinking that, oh, Josie, I want to really do this, but what's the point? Because I think I've already wasted 11 months of the year. No problem. There is this quote that goes that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. The second best time is now. So it's fine if you didn't know this and you left certain things to God's hands to do, which were your responsibility to take, but that's fine. There is no need to cry over spilled milk. This is the time to get up, take action, and do what you are supposed to do for your life to change, for you to transform your trees into sofas and furnitures and every other thing else that it can become for you. I hope today's conversation was a blessing. I hope you pick a thing or two that is going to help you. I hope that 2025 is not going to look like 2024 and the previous years where you said things or where God spoke to you, but the results didn't tally with the promise. I hope that this time around, our visions, our goals, our aspirations will become reality and tangible. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. If it blessed you, kindly subscribe, kindly share, kindly comment. Let's hear from you. See you next time. I love you.